My hip has been bothering me since winter. I turned 63. Some mornings, I just lie there after I wake up, shifting my weight slowly, testing the joint, waiting to find out what kind of day it's going to be. My doctor calls it osteoarthritis. I call it the price of 30 years swinging a framing hammer on job sites from Spokane to Missoula. Either way, it's mine. Same as this house is mine. I built this place myself. Not figuratively. I mean, I dug the footings. I pulled the wire. I nailed every cedar plank on that back porch with my own 2 hands, one board after another. The summer after my wife Elena passed. It took me 4 months. My neighbor Harold thought I'd lost my mind, a 61-year-old man with a bad hip doing finish carpentry alone in August. But I needed something to do with my hands, and I needed to hear the hammer. The quiet inside the house was the kind that presses down on your chest. That porch saved me. And that house, 3 bedrooms, a river rock fireplace, half an acre against the tree line in eastern Washington, that house was everything Elena and I worked 40 years for. I want you to remember that when I tell you what came next. My son Daniel is 40 years old. I'm proud of him the way fathers are proud of sons who turned out decent despite everything. The divorce, the years I worked too much, the silences I didn't fill when I should have. He's a good man. Steady job in supply chain. Pays his bills. Calls me on Sundays most of the time. We aren't the kind of father and son who talk about feelings, but we don't have to. We know where we stand. What I didn't know, what I should have paid closer attention to, was where his girlfriend stood. Her name was Mariana. They'd been together about 8 months when he asked if she could move in with him temporarily. He had a 1-bedroom apartment in Spokane. She'd had some trouble with a lease. He said just a few weeks. He said she had a lead on a new place. I said yes because he's my son. I said yes because Elena would have said yes. And saying yes felt like honoring her. I said yes because I am 66 years old. I live alone. And I have 2 empty bedrooms that just collect dust and old Field and Stream magazines. I gave Daniel a key. I gave him the alarm code. I said, keep the place clean and don't move anything. He laughed and said, Dad, relax. I should have put it in writing. I know that now. 3 weeks later, my old army buddy Vince called from Klamath Lake. He'd rented a cabin for 10 days. Good water, good weather, nothing but bass and quiet. He said I sounded like I needed it. He wasn't wrong. I packed a bag, put my mail on hold, and drove 3 hours south with my rod in the truck bed and a cooler full of things I probably shouldn't eat. I was gone 9 days. When I turned down my road on day 9 and saw the driveway, I felt the first small thing go wrong in my chest. Just a flutter. Nothing I could name yet. There was a second car parked there, not Daniel's truck. A dark green sedan with a cracked side mirror and a little wolf sticker on the bumper that I'd never seen before. Parked at an angle halfway across the gravel, like whoever left it there had never considered that anyone else might need to pull in. I sat in my truck for a moment. Then I got out. The front door was unlocked, which was the second thing. I pushed it open and the smell hit me first. Not a bad smell exactly, but a different smell. Someone else's candles, something synthetic and floral, the kind that comes in a jar from a truck stop. My house smelled like a motel lobby. The living room stopped me cold. My recliner, the brown leather one I'd had for 11 years, the one I bought myself after I paid off the mortgage, had been shoved into the corner at an angle, like it was in the way. In its place, dead center in front of the television, was a huge sectional sofa I had never seen before. Gray microfiber. Still had a price tag tucked under one cushion. My coffee table was gone. In its place was an oversized ottoman with a tray on top holding 2 coffee mugs, a TV remote I didn't recognize, and a bowl of the little chocolate candies Elena used to buy at Christmas. I stood there looking at a room that was mine, and I tried to stay calm. The bookshelf along the east wall, the one Daniel and I built together the summer he was 16, the one that held Elena's gardening books and my fly fishing manuals and the encyclopedia set we bought at an estate sale, had been pushed sideways to make room for a wireless speaker the size of a mini fridge. One of Elena's books had fallen behind it. I could see the spine sticking out. I pulled it out. It was her copy of the Western Garden book. She'd had it since before we were married. The cover was creased now, bent at the corner from falling. I held it for a moment, then set it on top of the shelf very carefully and walked to the kitchen. The kitchen was worse. My cast iron skillet, the one I'd seasoned for 15 years, was soaking in the sink full of soapy water. You don't soak cast iron. Everyone who has ever owned cast iron knows that. Dishes were stacked unevenly in the drying rack, crowded together in ways that were going to break. The cabinet where I keep my coffee was open, and the bag had been rolled down and left on the counter instead of sealed. There was a patch of dried sauce on the stove that had clearly been there for days. In my refrigerator, which I had left with a dozen eggs, leftover soup, and half a block of cheddar, there were now 6 condiments I didn't own, a bag of fast food containers, 2 brands of flavored sparkling water, and a cheesecake in a pink box. My eggs were gone. My soup was gone. The cheddar was gone. A single sticky note on the middle shelf said, "Out of OJ," in handwriting I didn't recognize. I closed the refrigerator. I stood in my kitchen for a long time. Then I heard it upstairs. The low sound of a television, and underneath it someone moving around. I went to the stairs slowly, partly because of my hip and partly because I wanted to hear before I was heard. The door to the guest room, the larger of the two, the one Elena used to call the real guest room, was closed, but the sound was coming from my room. My bedroom. I pushed open the door, and there she was. Mariana was lying on my bed. My bed, the king-size one Elena and I bought in 2009, with the quilt Elena's mother made by hand. All 4 pillows were arranged behind her like she was in a hotel. She was watching something on a laptop propped on my nightstand. She was wearing a sweatshirt and had her shoes on. On my bed, her shoes on my bed. She looked up, and she didn't look startled the way someone should when they're caught somewhere they shouldn't be. She looked almost inconvenienced. "Oh," she said. "You're back early." I was not back early. I was back on the day I said I would be back. I told her that. She sat up a little and tucked one leg under her. "Daniel said maybe a few more days," she said, like that explains something. "We thought we'd have more time to get everything sorted." "Everything sorted," I repeated. She looked at me then with an expression I am going to try to describe accurately because I want you to understand it. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't embarrassment. It was something more like patience, like she was waiting for me to catch up to a conclusion she'd already reached, a conclusion that was apparently obvious. "This place is really big for one person," she said. "Daniel and I have been talking. We think it makes more sense for us to be here. You'd have your room. We'd take the guest room. We'd all share the common spaces. It would actually be better for you. You wouldn't be alone." There it was. I had heard about this kind of thinking before, from friends, from stories online, from the cautionary conversations men my age have with each other over coffee when we think we're just venting, but we're actually warning each other. I had heard about it. I had never expected to be standing in the doorway of my own bedroom experiencing it. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "Where's Daniel?" "He's at work. He'll be back around 6. I nodded once. Then I said, "I want you to hear me clearly. This is my house. I own it. I built it. There is no arrangement. There is no discussion. You have until this time Thursday to have your things and his things out." Her expression shifted. The patience curdled into something harder. Daniel said, "This isn't about what Daniel said. This is about what I'm telling you right now." She started to say something else. I didn't wait for it. I walked downstairs, picked up my bag from where I'd dropped it by the door, and drove to my friend Harold's house. Harold is 71, a retired county assessor. He has a guest room that smells like old newspaper and cedar. I have never been so grateful for a plain room in my life. I sat at his kitchen table, drank his coffee, and told him everything. He listened. Then he said, "You know about adverse possession, right?" I knew the concept. I didn't know the specifics. He pulled out his laptop. "I'm going to be honest. I didn't go back that night because I needed to think and because I needed to be somewhere I could think clearly. Some people would have called the police right then. I understand that instinct. But I wanted to do this right. I wanted to do this in a way that couldn't be undone, that couldn't be argued with, that closed every door. I called my attorney the next morning. Her name is Patricia. I've known her since she handled the deed transfer when Elena and I bought the property. She's a small woman who sounds like she's reading you the weather report even when she's describing a lawsuit. That calm used to unsettle me. Now I find it the most reassuring sound in the world. I told her what I'd come home to. She asked 3 questions. Was my name the sole name on the deed? Yes. Had I given written permission for either party to occupy the property long term? No. Had any exchange of rent or money taken place? No. Good, she said. You're in a clean position. No tenancy has been legally established. We send a formal notice of trespass. If they don't vacate, we file for immediate removal. This will be quick. How quick? I asked. Quicker than they expect, she said. That afternoon, Patricia sent a formal notice by certified mail and had a copy hand-delivered by a process server to the front door of my house. It was a trespass notice under Washington law. It named both Daniel and Mariana. It gave them 72 hours to vacate the premises completely, remove all belongings, and return the key and any copies made. It noted that failure to comply would result in law enforcement assistance and a civil claim for property damages. I also called a locksmith, not to change the locks immediately, I didn't need to legally yet, but to schedule it for the moment they were out. My son called me at 4:17 that afternoon. He was not calm. I let him talk. He was shocked, then hurt, then angry in that particular way that young people get angry when consequences arrive, and they decide the consequences are the real problem. He said I was overreacting. He said Mariana had just been trying to help. He said the couch was a good couch and he thought I'd like it. I waited. Then I said, Daniel, I asked you to keep the house clean and not rearrange anything. I came home to a different living room, food missing from my kitchen, a damaged pan, and your girlfriend lying on my bed telling me she and you had decided the house was too big for me to live in alone. Silence. I am not overreacting. I am reacting. And if you and Mariana are out by Thursday at 4 Sai, we don't have to go any further than this. More silence. Dad, he said finally. His voice was different, quieter, younger. She told me she was just floating the idea. I didn't know she said it like that. I believe you, I said. That's why your name is on that notice and not on a lawsuit. He exhaled. They were out by Wednesday evening, 11 hours early. Harold drove me over. We stood in the driveway and watched Daniel carry the last box to his truck. He didn't look at me while he was loading it. When everything was in the truck, he walked over to where I was standing and held out my key. I took it. He said, I'm sorry, Dad. I said, I know. We stood there for a moment, the way we stand at grave sites, not because anything has died, but because something has been marked. Mariana was already in the passenger seat of the sedan with the cracked mirror. She didn't get out. The locksmith came the next morning. I stood on the porch with a cup of coffee and watched him work. The cedar boards beneath my feet were still solid. I'd built them to last. It took me 3 days to get the house back to something that felt like mine. My recliner went back to its place by the window. Elena's gardening book went back on the shelf. I reseasoned the cast iron skillet, a process that takes patience and heat and time and turns out exactly the way you'd expect. The new sectional I called about removing, and Harold helped me load it into his truck to be donated. In its place went the old wool rug I'd rolled up in the garage the year before, thinking I might replace it. I unrolled it. It was fine. It was always fine. I found one of Elena's reading glasses behind the nightstand when I was putting the room back together. Just one lens, no case. I don't know how they got there or how long they'd been there. I held them for a while in my palm, the way you hold something small that used to belong to someone. Then I put them in the cedar box on the dresser where I keep the things that matter. Daniel called that Sunday like he usually does. We talked for about 20 minutes. We talked about the weather in Spokane, about the fishing at Klamath, about whether the roof on the south side needed looking at before winter. We did not talk about Mariana. I don't know if they're still together. I didn't ask. There are things I could say to my son that would feel good to say and would do damage I couldn't take back. I've learned at 66 that the difference between those things and wisdom is just enough time to feel the words in your mouth and decide not to open it. What I will tell you is this. I know a man, retired contractor, lives alone, good man, who let his daughter move in temporarily 3 years ago. She brought her boyfriend. The boyfriend brought a dog. The dog had puppies. The daughter had a baby. The man is now living in his own house and sleeping in the basement. He hasn't had dinner at his own kitchen table in 14 months. He is not a weak man. He is a man who waited too long to say a specific, clear, documented thing. Documents matter. Timing matters. Clarity is not cruelty. If you are living alone in a home you own and someone tells you with a smile, patiently, reasonably, that your house is too big for just one person, that they could help you, that it makes more sense for them to be there, hear me. That is not an observation. That is a claim. And a claim made in your house, on your property, in your kitchen, in your bedroom, in your life. A claim like that deserves an answer. My answer was 72 hours. The cedar porch is still standing. The river rock fireplace works. The recliner is by the window where it belongs. And every morning I wake up, test my hip, and lie there for a moment in the quiet that is mine. The quiet I paid for, built for, and earned.